Country has a new Supreme Court justice this morning. Brett Kavanaugh was sworn in overnight, ending an epic and bitter battle over his nomination, one that transfixed the nation, deepened our divisions, and raised painful questions about sex, power, and gender relations.
And the president wasting no time celebrating his victory and touting his success to a cheering crowd at a rally overnight in Topeka, Kansas. But not everyone was cheering. Protesters repeatedly interrupted the final confirmation vote in the Senate chamber, crowded the steps of the Supreme Court, and took to the streets in several cities to express their outrage.
So many questions this morning about this huge story. Can the Senate recover from the acrimony that surrounded this confirmation fight? What will Kavanaugh's elevation do to both the reputation and the rulings of the Supreme Court? And how will all of this impact the midterm elections now just weeks away? ABC's chief White House correspondent John Karl is in our Washington bureau this morning. John, good morning to you.
Good morning, Dan. After weeks of drama and division, Brett Kavanaugh is now Justice Kavanaugh, boosting President Trump's legacy and possibly reshaping the court for decades to come. At a campaign rally overnight in Topeka, Kansas, the president reveled in his victory just hours after the Senate confirmed Brett Kavanaugh as the newest justice of the United States Supreme Court.
I'm thrilled to be here with all of my friends on this truly historic night. This is a historic...
Under banners reading "Promises Made, Promises Kept," President Trump touted the win as a turning point heading into the midterms, now just 30 days away.
We have been energized. We have been energized.
And he claimed Kavanaugh's confirmation battle has shown Democrats are too radical to lead.
The Democrats have become too extreme and too dangerous to govern. That's right. Republicans believe in the rule of law, not the rule of the mob.
But this was a victory that divided the nation. Before and after the vote, protesters flooded the Capitol. The protesters crossed a police line, amassing on the Supreme Court's sprawling front steps. They chanted support for sexual assault survivors and promised a reckoning for Republicans in the midterms. Not long after he was confirmed, Brett Kavanaugh whisked past the protesters and into the Supreme Court in a line of black SUVs, where he was sworn in late Saturday by Chief Justice John Roberts and the man he'll replace, retired Justice Anthony Kennedy. Kavanaugh's controversial confirmation became certain after Republican Senator Susan Collins said that she would support him on Friday. But Senate Democrats voiced their opposition and their frustration until the final vote.
President Trump's nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to the United States Supreme Court has been one of the saddest moments in the history of the Senate.
That sentiment was echoed by protesters in the Senate gallery, who repeatedly interrupted the proceedings.
Sergeant at Arms will restore order in the gallery.
But by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Vice President Mike Pence announced Kavanaugh's confirmation.
On this vote, the ayes are 50, the nays are 48. The nomination of Brett M. Kavanaugh of Maryland to be an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States is confirmed.
With a conservative majority cemented on the court, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell relished the Republican victory.
We stood up for the presumption of innocence.
President Trump watched the vote aboard Air Force One en route to his rally in Kansas.
We're very honored that he was able to withstand this horrible, horrible attack by the Democrats.
The president is not backing down from his support for Kavanaugh and his belief that he was innocent of the sexual assault allegations that had threatened to derail his nomination.
Are you 100% certain that Ford named the wrong person? Or?
I'm 100%. I have no doubt.
As he was sworn in last night by Justice Roberts and former Justice Kennedy, several of the other justices were on hand, including Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Elena Kagan. And now Brett Kavanaugh is officially one of the 9 justices of the Supreme Court. He will take his seat on the bench when the court resumes hearing cases on Tuesday. Dan?
And we know Trump may get the chance to nominate more folks to the Supreme Court, given the age of some of the existing justices. We know also that Kavanaugh is going to change the ideological makeup of the court, shifting it to the right. What is that likely to mean, John, for hot-button issues such as abortion rights, gun rights, environmental protection?
Well, there's no doubt it'll shift the court to the right on all of those issues. The biggest question, though, Dan, is on abortion. Remember, candidate Donald Trump promised that he would nominate pro-life justices. Now, neither Gorsuch nor Kavanaugh have said exactly how they would rule, obviously, on Roe v. Wade. There's no question that that is the big issue here. Now, Susan Collins, who put him on the court with her yes vote, has said that she got assurances from Kavanaugh that he will respect so-called stare decisis precedent. And, of course, Roe v. Wade is now Supreme Court precedent.
John, President Trump is on a roll in recent weeks. New numbers showing the economy is roaring. He's made progress on trade and now 2 Supreme Court confirmations under his belt. What is the likely impact of all of this as we head into the midterms?
Well, in the polling that we have seen before and after this confirmation battle, you have seen a clear shift. Republicans are now more intensely paying attention and enthusiastic about the midterm elections. The gap has narrowed in several key races, especially Senate races. There's no question that at least right now, 1 month out, the momentum has shifted back towards the Republicans. That said, they still face a very much an uphill battle in keeping control of the House.
And John, speaking of impact, but in a different way, you've covered Capitol Hill for many years. We've heard numerous members of the Senate, normally a collegial institution, bemoaning, complaining the raw bitterness of this fight. What lasting implications could there be for the Senate now?
Well, I've seen some very bitter battles, obviously, over the impeachment of Bill Clinton, the Iraq War. This is far from the first bitterly divisive battle. But this one does seem different in a way of how personal it got. The personal attacks back and forth by each of, by each party. And this does seem like it will take a long time to overcome the divisions. And it's hard to see, frankly, how those divisions are overcome.
Yeah, we hear people asking about whether this is rock bottom. John Karl, thank you. I want to remind everybody, John is going to be hosting this week later this morning. He'll go one-on-one with Counselor to the President, Kellyanne Conway, plus Hawaii Senator Mazie Hirono offering the Democratic perspective on this morning. It's all coming up on This Week right here on ABC. Our thanks again to John Karl.